But let's move on to the major incident, the talking point. Andy Robertson. We'll start off speaking about this in sort of the details, if you like. Steve, I'll come to you on it, mate. Yeah, there's no complaint. I did see some sort of aftermath and some pushback on it not being a red card, which I don't really understand. I would have loved it to have not been a red card. I'd have loved it to have been offside and we all could have carried on with our lives. Wasn't to be. Listen, the minute he gets that touch wrong, it spells serious trouble immediately, doesn't it? And then he compounds that by making another error, of course, by diving in. Your thoughts on it, and feel free to tell me it wasn't a red, but from where I'm sitting, it definitely was.
There are the optimistic within our fan base that will tell you Virgil will get to that. The reality is he's not going to get to that. You can get a shot off before he gets anywhere near it. It's a horrible first touch. It's a lunge, and it might be the point that Slot's made. He's probably still feeling the effects of that challenge. I'm not going to pile on Andy Robertson because of what he's achieved. I still think there's lots to come from him. I still think he's a valuable part of the squad. He does need some competition in there, genuine competition, and if that's Tsimikas, that's a different story. However, where he does struggle is when he finds himself in the left centre-back role, because it's just not good enough. He needs a touchline. All full-backs use the touchline as their friend, and he struggles with that, and that's probably the area for me where Tsimikas has edged in front of him, because he's more comfortable taking the ball in there, and his progression the ball is better than Andy Robertson's. There are things Andy Robertson does better than Tsimikas, but I can see why he's had game time. Because the idea in the build-up is for the full-backs to be narrow, so we can switch the ball from left to right and then start a quick transition. You struggle doing that with Robertson in the left centre-back role, and that's why a lot of the fans are saying, look, we need to look at somebody else. But the players we're looking at, your Aït-Nouris and your Robinsons, they're not the left centre-backs either. They're marauding left-sided,
certainly Robinson,
full-backs who go down the outside of people and get balls in, as we spoke about with the goal. And Nouri's got a goal threat in him as well. So I don't know whether those orthodox left backs would be the answer, but Andy Robertson is certainly struggling as a left centre back when it happens to him.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, that, and ultimately, yes, because there's been a wider conversation about Andy Robertson all season long, really, John. And some may argue it went into the back end of last season, the tail end of that, maybe even beforehand. Yeah, even beforehand, exactly.
I don't think the Andy Robertson we saw originally bombing up and down the wing has been there for a couple of years.
Okay.
I don't think even when he's on the wing, he's not going past his fullback. Hasn't done that for a long time. But I mean, I think that's a bit divorced from this incident. I mean, I'm in the camp that it wasn't a red.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. I honestly thought the ball was going to run away. It wasn't going into the penalty area. It was running towards Virgil. So for him to get across, and I'm not so sure it was definitely a goal scoring opportunity, and it's certainly no more a goal scoring opportunity than Andy Robertson in the first minute, because if he'd have got through, he'd have been through on goal with a chance of a shot. And I don't see why one is a yellow and one is a red.
Okay.
So it's just a bit harsh for me. I mean, that doesn't take away from the fact that Andy Robertson isn't what he's been, and I don't think that the knock in the first minute helped him at all.
I think we can close off sort of the incident as just being, it is what it is, a little bit. I think we can broaden it out somewhat. And you mentioned a couple of names there, Steve, in terms of who's been spoken about as potential replacements. You also obviously mentioned Kostas Tsimikas as being genuine competition, and it's looked like he has been that. He's actually usurped him at times this season, I think it's fair to say, in Arne Slot's mind's eye. However, Tsimikas, we're led to believe, isn't a million miles away from fitness now, which is great. We're going to need him, short, medium term, potentially. But longer term, do you think it is a Kostas Tsimikas solution, or do you think we do need to look into the market? And a lot of people have seen that game of the weekend and immediately gone, Anthony Robinson, he's the one. And it's clear to see why, because he was very good. Defensively, I thought he handled Salah pretty well. Going forward, he's clearly a threat as well. My reservation with him is he's 27. I'm not sure you're in the market for a 27-year-old fullback personally, but what's your take?
No, I'd agree with that. The age thing has always been a factor for us, certainly in our analytics when we're looking at players. We spoke in the summer about Incapi from Leverkusen being a left-back come left-sided centre-back. That fits the bill a little bit more, especially if we do retain Trent and we do focus on building down the right-hand side. The old adage, everybody comes across one. You want someone who's au fait with being a centre-back, sitting in a centre-back position rather than your left-back facing his own goal, who is the victim of a horrendous first touch and then doesn't know what to do. He'd have been better doing nothing, but that's hindsight, isn't it? Let I'd go through and see if Alisson can do what he's been doing all season. Yeah.
But he's panic mode by then.
Well, you have that amount of time to think about it. So the idea is I've got to get something on the ball and stab it back and hope the goalkeeper's alive to it. It is a red card. It is a decision to make. If we'd be sitting here today if we hadn't had it, saying we got away with one. Absolutely, we got away with one. So, but I take John's point. It's more of a consistency issue that both of them should have gone for both of the fouls, and then you might not feel the way you feel about Robertson's because
of the first thing,
because you're motivated by the first one in the sense that with Robbo's and that's the inconsistency, and that's my earlier point in that we're talking about officiating once again.
Just generally,
the thing about Anthony Robinson is the. I'm not sure we want a fullback who's that
adventurous,
who leaves his defensive duties as much as he does. Good as he is going forward. I mean, there were times Salah went past him as if he wasn't there, but other times, he was strong arm and Salah. So he is decent, but. I think we need a proper fullback, and they're quite keen on the Bournemouth guy, aren't they?
Milos Kerkez,
he's quite young, isn't he?
Yeah, 22, I think I'm right in saying.
So,
Richard Hughes has signed him once before. He literally took him to Bournemouth, and that's the reason he's there. So there is something to like. There's something that at least makes sense in
you
that.
Can't have them both go. That's our worry. Because if they both go, then you've got channel balls all day long against you, haven't you?
And Kerkez is a fullback. I think he's more conventional in what he does. He's never really played as a left-sided centre-half, as far as I'm aware, anyway. But I do quite like him. I think he offers a lot of what a younger Andy Robertson once did, if that makes sense. But to sort of rewind this conversation slightly, it's my fault. I got a bit carried away in terms of signings. On Robertson, generally, John, I'll come to you on it first. Like, where are you at in terms of... I sat here about a month and a half ago and said we're writing the obituary to Andy Robertson's career, and it felt premature. I'm still sat here now having a very similar conversation. Where are you at?
I still think he's a good footballer who is... good to have in your squad. He's got lots of experience. I think he must be great in the dressing room and all the rest of it. But we need a better fullback. As simple as that. Okay. We need to go and buy a left back. Yeah. And I don't think Tsimikas is the answer. No. He's decent, but who last season would have said, "Oh yeah, we're happy for Tsimikas to be our permanent left back."
If we'd told him in the summer, we would have gone, "Oh well, he's gone. Thanks for what you did. Off you go. Go and enjoy the rest of your career." My concern is, and I've spoken to you about this a few times, Dan, is that I'm not in the camp of Robbo is finished, but if we're looking at Tsimikas as a viable option to Robertson, that speaks to the problem we feel we have with Robertson, which is a concern.
Absolutely. So, in answer to that, then, what would be your sort of ideal left-back scenario next summer? Because I think it is a summer thing. I've seen a lot of people calling for January, do something then. I don't think Liverpool will panic in that sense, personally. I think Robertson and Tsimikas will see out this season unless, touch wood, it doesn't happen, catastrophic injury, whatever.
The only way that won't be is if, for some reason, they think now is the time to get him before someone else does. That's what Liverpool do, isn't it?
We did it with Gakpo.
They find out who they want, and then if someone else starts sniffing around, they think, "Oh, we better get him now."
That's a fair point.
That's the only reason I think they would buy in January.
I completely agree with that. So again, let's move to next summer then. You've just said there Andy Robertson still has a part to play in the squad. I agree. Therefore, Kostas Tsimikas doesn't in the nicest possible. Come the summertime, you want to buy a first choice one, I take it. Robertson becomes the backup, understudy, whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
Tsimikas moves on.
I'm like Ste. If it had gone in the summer, I wouldn't have surprised me. Tsimikas.
No.
I still think Andy Robertson is a better bet all round than Tsimikas.
I agree.
And therefore, he would be third choice. And I'm hoping our third choice is someone who's 18.
Yes, you can't have a Kostas Tsimikas at 28, full-time Greece international as your third choice left back.
No, if we go into the market and we buy one, that tells him all he needs to know, really. I can't see Robertson moving on and him staying again as another understudy to a youngster. I think the order of the day will be to buy a full-back that's comfortable passing balls through lines because of the way we play him. We're quite wide up top. You can't have, let's assume in a world where it's Conor Bradley and Trent's not available one week, it's Conor Bradley on one side and Anthony Robertson on the other side. Suddenly you're looking at it and you're thinking we've lost our shape. So if you've got a ball playing technically decent passer that is a defender first, then it allows you to build down one side and then possibly, if it doesn't work, get that switch in, bring him in narrow, get him to get the ball out of his feet. For me, sometimes Robertson doesn't get the ball out of his feet quick enough and it doesn't move quick enough. and players are making runs, and then those runs are shut down, and it's kind of right. We have to go back to the right hand side and recycle and try again, which is fine because it means you're controlling the game and it means you're patient. But I think if you were to sit down with the manager and say, what would you like to improve, it would be how we wet the ball out of our back four in the transition, and it comes undone a little bit at left back.
Okay, interesting, yeah. And just for sort of finality on this point, I think we're all in a similar camp there. Then it probably is time for left back to come in next summer and one move on. I think that's fair enough.
Might give him the kick up the backside he needs to sort his head out, mate.
Nothing wrong with good competition, is there?
Yeah. And he's come out fighting previously in his career, very recently, actually. And again, I think he's aware of some of the sort of the dissenting voices around his career, and he comes out and says, I'll show you. And I love that from Andy Robertson, by the way, and that's who he is as a character, who he is as a person, who he's been as a footballer, basically. I mean, started from, not the bottom, but with all due respect, and he's worked his way to where he is in terms of the accolades he has won. Just dead finally then, on this point, in terms of profile and in terms of potential names, Steve, you're looking at more of a centre-half stroke left-back hybrid?
I'd take the lad at Bournemouth, as you spoke about, yeah. I'd also look at the lad at Leverkusen I mentioned before. The only issue with him is there a little bit of volatility about him. He's a bit of a loon, isn't he?
That South American flair that they've got.
So that can be a little bit rash. And some of the other names we sat and spoke about collectively here in the summer are also prospects, centre backs with a little bit of work to do to get to where they need to be for that. Get to the point where they can go and play for Liverpool. Yeah. So I think I favour a technically solid left back that doesn't see maraudering as his number one thing to do.
Well, you just said the word maraudering there, and the whole time we were talking, I was thinking Alphonso Davies is a free agent next summer,
but he can't defend.
He's as attack minded as they come, isn't it? But 24 free agent, like in terms of signings and major coups, like he'd be what?
Well, in a world, if Trent decides Liverpool's not for him, you just change the dynamic and you'd build down the left hand side. And Alphonso Davies is somebody you could use because he would run beyond your left wing until the cows come home, wouldn't he? It'd be like the Forrest Gump thing where you try and get him to stop. It's a bit like that.
I mean, you do want someone who can do that, go past their fullback and go past your winger. But you don't want their whole game to be that. You need
and that
to be
is his game, defend. Completely his game, yeah.
You've got to, as long as they're left-footed, can defend and have pace, that'll do me.
Okay. Owen Beck, get back to this football club, my mate. No, it's an interesting one, it's a really interesting conversation, sort of short, medium and long term, because short term, Andy Robertson's not available. It's probably going to be James Norris, I imagine, if we do something at left back in this week, which we're going to need to, obviously. Owen Beck's currently enjoying a very good loan at Blackburn, so yeah, conversations.
Don't you see Gomez there and Quansah in alongside Verge?
Possibly, but then you need to do something at right back. There you go.
Conversations.